Monitors, display devices is what we're on now. So they've got discussion on them. They talk about the LCD monitors, which is what you're usually using. They split them into categories here, which I've never have seen mentioned on a test on them. And give you information about that. They split them into twisted pneumatic and in-plane switching. And they tell you on that how they're doing some stuff. And they give refresh rates there at 60 for the in-place ones and 60 to 144 for the twisted pneumatic, which, interesting enough, they told us earlier in the chapter that it wasn't good to go with those lower numbers. That we said those weren't right because they were saying that you didn't have monitors running below 70, and here they're using 60 as their number, which is the number we know the monitors in here are running at. So they mentioned that they're used on a lot of things. And then it puts there that the high-end IPS ones are over $1,000, and these that they said are really great for gaming. So I'm not exactly sure where they're going with this. So they've got them split into that, with that, and that they're going with the twisted pneumatic ones, have poor viewing angles on them, but basically if you've got a decent, that the LCD ones, that it's not a question of looking at them angled much anymore on them. So I'm not sure where they rolled with that. And then the IPS ones, I'm guessing that a monitor I had, which was designed for these uses, and that's what I bought it for. It puts us very expensive, over $1,000, and it ran, I think it cost me $700, and then if I'd replaced it when it broke, it would have been $1,000. I was going to get it fixed, but the repair shop has never told me what it was. It was a power supply, and they'd ordered it from China, and they've never gotten further back with me. So that's the way those go. They mentioned about plasma ones, where it's using lots of little cells with ionized gases. They're not going to be as high a quality. There's no backlighting on them, where on these other monitors, your LCD ones, there is a backlight to them that you're using on them. If that backlighting does go bad, then your monitor goes bad on you. So the plasma ones, they don't generate a lot of heat to them. So those there. The LED ones, or the OLED, that they're using, the organic compound ones, that they're efficient, wider viewing angles, it says, and faster response times. And those, they said, you can actually put into cloth. And then there's the projector, that you can use a projector as what you're using for your monitor, which is what we're using right here. And that they've got it is projecting it onto some place. So you've got a variety of those. And that they say the LCD ones can be very compact, and you can go out and buy projectors that fit into your hand, for data projectors on them nowadays. So you've got a variety of those. To that, they're giving you way more information than you probably want or need to know. Resolution, they talk about that on here. And that has changed over time. to what we're using along the way. SVGA is using those blue plugs, standard monitor plugs that we had been using, which was an 800 by 600, although nobody was running at 800 by 600 anymore. That generally they're running at SVGA, XGA, sorry. And then you've got higher ones on up here. My higher quality one I had was up here on the 1920 by, I think it was 1200, so it must have been WXGA. And now you've got the 4K stuff out there too, but you got to have a device that's driving the 4K. Just like you can buy your 4K TVs also, but a lot of the TV stuff is not coming across for 4K for you. And then that you can choose in term which resolution you want to use, that you can use lower on the machines or you can go upward. Aspect ratio is in terms of the sizing of the height versus width of the screen. That on standard transmission, on standard stuff that was done, it was done 4:3, that you were doing 4:3. And you fit back to 800, 600, and 1600 by 1200. 16:9 is what's being done with high definition now. And that's why when you put some stuff onto certain screens that you end up with the black borders on the top and bottom, is because it's of the different aspect ratio than what your monitor is working at. And that's when it's driving me crazy with where I do the stuff at church, that aspect ratio it's putting up on the screen in the church is a different aspect ratio apparently than my monitor when I'm preparing it. And so I end up with these black areas on the screen that I'm going, I didn't really want that there, but some of the stuff is working correctly both places, some stuff doesn't. Viewing angle, they mentioned on that, and that is, can you see the screen when you step to the side of it? Or it is, you need to be looking straight on at it. And older screens, you had a bigger problem on that. Response times, how long does it take for a single pixel to turn on or off? And so you obviously want that to be the smaller numbers on it, that you want it to change as quickly as possible. And they give you the number of that you want 5 milliseconds or less for fast moving graphics, which is what a lot of us are wanting to have out there, as they put for movies or games. So that pretty well covers the whole population right there. Refresh rate, how many is the number of times the entire screen is refreshed per second. On your LCD ones, that's not quite as critical to you as it was on the CRT ones. And the CRT ones had slower refresh times on it. And if you've ever took a picture of something that was on a CRT monitor, or watched on, or seen pictures taken of them, you'll notice, or where they film on them, it's a different refresh rate than what they were videoing at. And you'll see they're sitting there rolling on the screen, and that's because of the difference of refresh rates on it, and that it gets caught at difference. Brightness, y'all know what that is. Contrast, just contrast the difference between the white and the black and the different colors, and makes it more stand out for you. Color depth is how many possible colors you've got. The 8-bit goes back to the 800 by 600 on the SVGA, and does not give you very good color on your screen when you're limited to just 256 colors. 16-bit, 34-bit, 24-bit, 32-bit give you lots more colors, and it becomes really true color on it. So that when you're getting into that 24-bit and 32-bit coloring, which is what you've got a lot of times now, that is considered true color because everything looks more natural on it. Those are going to be, your bottom end monitors are only going to be doing the 16-bit, which gets pretty close with 65,000, but when you get to the 16 million, everything looks realistic. And that was what I liked about that Lacey monitor I had that I'd spent extra on, was colors were completely true colors for me on the monitors. And that when I was editing pictures and stuff, it made it work a lot better. So I mentioned about the VGA plug, which is your standard one there. But notice that you're limited on what you can do with it. The DVI one, which you've got an analog and a digital, but I really don't remember seeing an analog one out there. That either the single link or dual link, and most of the time I've seen dual link ones on that, and that lets us send a much more signal to it, that our bandwidth is much increased on it, and so we got a lot more capabilities on it. The DVI integrated is not just sending across the video signal to it, but is also sending across audio signals to it also, so that it has integrated it all together. HDMI one, that you'll see it and the DVI used quite often nowadays on it. On your laptops, you'll see that you've got an HDMI connection off of most of the new ones on them, and no longer have the SVGA in a lot of cases on them, and just an HDMI, but you don't have DVI. But on your desktops, you're typically having DVI and SVGA as outlets on them. Your monitors, a lot of them have all three sitting on them, where you can plug in whichever type you want to do. And I don't remember seeing any DisplayPort ones. Composite, you will actually see those along with the plugs below the component ones, that if you're using a camera, quite often they usually feed out using the composite on that, and that's the video signal on them. But they'll usually have, if they've got sound also, they'll have one or more of the color ones there, that they'll have that it provides your video there too also. However, it's providing your audio on separate pieces on it. And it could use the mini pin one, so that it's splitting here the video channel out on 3 channels, and it's combining it all on this one, on this approach. And then you could do it across coaxial or connecting up the stuff too, although you're seeing less and less of the use of coaxial out there today. Dual monitors is a very popular new choice to do out there. That you could set up with dual monitors on it. And you can get a video, if most of your video cards are going to support dual monitors on them now, and Windows supports it too, so that you can set up to have 2 monitors running off your machine, and that you can set up Windows to work with those dual monitors in whatever way you want to work with them. Typically with one of the monitors running off of SVGA and one off DVI, although on your higher end video cards you can have 2 DVI outputs coming off of it, so that you could have 2 DVI monitors sitting off of it, and so you can set them up accordingly. There is some cases where you're using dual monitor that y'all may not be realize that they're doing dual monitor on it. Where I'm doing in church, that I've got up there in the balcony of the church, that I've got the computer I'm sitting in front of and got a screen sitting there, that I control what's on the screens in the front of the church up there. What's on the screens in the front of the church is coming off as a separate monitor than my monitor, so I've got 2 monitors actually working on it, and my mouse will move across onto theirs or onto mine if I'm not careful at times, because I've just gone with, in that case I've extended the monitor so that what's on the display on it, it's really a bigger display on fit on one monitor and overflows on the other. You can also do a duplication, and like when I was at Kiwanis meeting a couple of weeks ago at the conference, that we were doing duplicate there, because what was on the computer is what we wanted up on the screen. So I just went in Windows and told it in the monitor setting in there to duplicate the screen, so that what I was looking at on the PC to click using PowerPoint to the next one was the same thing that they were seeing up there on the bigger screen. Whereas at church, I've got a program that puts one thing over on another area on the display, expanded out beyond the width of what the monitor is, and I see stuff that the people sitting in church don't see. So that I know what the next slide is that I'm going to put up there before it goes up. Where when I was sitting at the Kiwanis meeting, I didn't know what was on the next slide until I clicked it. Whereas at church, I need to know what's on the next one, and like when they say sing all the verses in a hymn, that I need to know when I hit the last verse of the hymn, so that then I can jump to the next PowerPoint. And it's really just a glorified PowerPoint program to it. So they have you do that in an exercise to go up to set up dual monitors. Then take you through and have you do it on a Mac and in Linux. And then they take you through a troubleshooting part of monitors, video troubleshooting, that it says that the computer system does not boot. Make sure that it really is the system not booting and not just that the monitor's not working. Check, make sure you're plugged. That's one of the things you want to check to make sure it is plugged in and good there. It could give you a post error about that also, because the video card's gone bad on you. If you get weird colors on your screen, one place that quite often will cause that is that your cable has got a break in the cable, because it's a group of little wires in it, and if one of those little wires get broken, the different colors come across in different wiring on it. The other one is make sure that it is plugged in tightly on both ends. Most often is that the plug's gotten loose, or that somebody took it off, plugged it back in, and didn't tighten the screws down on it, and then somebody else has bumped and is partly unplugged. Same thing for blurry images, strange color tints. Then it says here, image missing, doesn't fit on the screen. Make sure your resolution is set correctly to the monitor's resolution, because your monitor, so you may have gone and told it to send it across on a resolution that the monitor doesn't support. And that could be too big of a resolution and could be too small. I'll mess it up both ways. And it notes there about that programs can have high video demands, and that'll mess things up on there. Keep in mind your video card does have memory on it, and so there's a maximum amount of how much it can work with it. I think I've mentioned in here right now, my video card, I am maxing it out. And I've got more memory in the thing, but with what I'm trying to run now, that when I convert the lectures from in here to video, that is a highly video intensive application on it. And my machine sits there and screams at me, but so far hasn't acted up anything other than that I hear a continuous beep in the background telling me that it's having problems, but it hasn't affected anything else, because I've actually been editing pictures at the same time, which is when it really blows it. Flickering screens, check to make sure the refresh, see if you can raise the refresh rate slightly. Check to see whether they've got a loose cable. And then they note there, change the resolution size. And that could be, the cable could be bad, or your card could have gone bad on you too. And that your monitor could be a problem on some of these also. Image does not display on a second monitor with doing dual. Big one on that usually is go back into your operating system and configure it for dual monitor, and if you want it to be appearing on both, make sure that you're in duplicate. If you want it where you've got an extended monitor, which is the way the monitors on my desk are, set it as extended. What that really means is what the computer sees going out is the width of both of those monitors, but only half of it's on one monitor and half of it's on the other, so they each grab accordingly because we've told it to extend to the second monitor. So it puts what it can fit on the first one, and then the rest of it puts onto the second one. And Windows knows how to split on that, handling it. You can have pixels go bad in monitors. You also usually have bad pixels on a monitor. That monitors do not come 100% working with a ton of pixels that are on them. There are some bad ones on them. It's just, and that when they ship them, they know there's a few bad ones on them. It's just as long as they're not in any area that affects you. It's just when some other pixels start going bad, they could go bad into an area where it doesn't work for you anymore. That you're losing an area that you need on there. So, dead pixels, you just got to see, is it still usable to you or not usable to you? You may have to just get a new monitor. Screen burn-in's not a problem anymore. That's an old problem. But it notes there about them, but actually screen burn-in is a leftover from CRT monitors. With the LCD, LED ones, there is not screen burn-in. CRTs had screen burn-in because they were projecting an image onto the screen itself, and that it was lighting up spots on the screen, and that then it would burn. If it stayed the same thing on there, that area had stayed on so much it just stayed on because of how it worked. But with the LCD and LED, you're not having a problem with that, and that's where they used to tell you you need to run screensavers on there when you weren't doing stuff for a while or whatever, and now they don't have you really doing. People put screensavers on there more for prettiness, etc., and then where they think they still need them, it's not making a difference on that part. Putting the screen to sleep is helpful for you on extending the life of the monitor, instead of it displaying all the time there, and saves energy, so because it's not using the full energy on it. So that part does still work. And then it says if videos don't display, to one of the things is to look up your file formats and make sure that you got a file format that actually works on your machine. And then they go through and have you do a few things on there. Setting up drivers, usually that's all plug and play now, although you do need to install drivers for certain video cards that when you install the video card, do run to the setup they've got for it, and they're going to install their drivers for it. If you don't install their drivers, you're not using your video card to its capacity on it, okay? Because it's going to not be able to use all of the abilities to it. And those do have to be updated occasionally. And then tell you about how to work with the drivers on the different operating systems. And then they get into installing different hardware devices and the drivers. So, if you're going to buy or install a device on your machine, one of the things they mention is make sure that it does have a driver that works with the version of the operating system you have. Sometimes the older drivers will not work in the newer versions of Windows. Sometimes they can, but they're limited on what they'll do. So see if you're using Windows 10, make sure there is a Windows 10 driver out there for your device. You may be able to get away with an older one, you may not be able to. It tells you there to go out and check the hardware, Microsoft hardware compatibility list. That's not real easy to find that one to check on there, but if you were upgrading and you can actually go out and run it against your stuff and check on it, that doesn't always work for you. Even if it's got the certified for Windows logo on the device, see what version of Windows it uses, because there's a difference on those. If it is a full plug and play device, you don't have to worry about any of that type of stuff. USB to make the comment to install the driver before connecting the device. Although typically I have found out there on that the one device that really applies to on that is if you're installing scanners that are going to use USB, or even if they're using a SCSI connection on it. You need to install the scanner before you hook it up. Don't hook the scanner up first. So it says here that you should make sure this driver is signed and from a trusted publisher. The only thing is a lot of times they don't sign the drivers, and so look at it and see if it really is from the company it's supposed to be from, and if it pops up and tells you this isn't an assigned driver, if you know you got it from whoever it was supposed to come from, just go ahead on that. But as far as them being manually approved, it's just a pop-up box that says this driver's not signed, or that it's not from a trusted publisher. And usually the reason it's not from a trusted publisher is they didn't, to be a trusted publisher, they have to pay Microsoft to be a trusted publisher for everything that they put it onto, so they decide to save money and not get it certified out there by Microsoft. To go into Device Manager, where you'll control all of that stuff, they note you can right-click the Start menu and then choose Device Manager, and then choose Start and click Device Manager, or through the Windows R. So if I go there and right-click, you've got a whole bunch of start options that are different than on your other. I'm going to Device Manager. And it won't let me do it in here because I don't have administrative rights. Well, actually it did. Okay. So it let me go on into it, but it's told me I can't change anything. So it will list all your devices here, and then you can click on the devices. If they got arrows beside them, there's items within that area. So we could go to any one of those and then choose within it what the specific things are. So I could go to disk drives, click the arrow, and it tells me I've got an ST 500 DMO SCSI drive on there. Interesting that it says it's a SCSI disk drive. Should be a SATA drive, but it says it's a SCSI. I doubt very seriously it's a SCSI disk drive. I really suspect it's a SATA. And I don't know if it's going to let us go and look at the drivers for that or not. Yeah, it does. So it then tells us there what it is. There's a standard disk drive, so it just used its standard format one on it, and it tells us the driver it's got installed. If we had administrative rights, we could choose to update the driver on it, etc. So if I go to network adapters, I have a little different there. It tells us we've got an Ethernet connection sitting there. And if I go to driver on it, it tells us we've got an Intel driver from 2015 installed on there. And that it does have a digital signature on it. And if I had administrative rights, I would have those other buttons would be lit up for me, but they don't give me administrative rights on this machine. So you can make changes in there and see a number of different things. Device Manager can really be your friend. And they have a lab for you to do on that. Speaking of which, Chapter 1 I have moved across scores. So you do have some scores sitting in Blackboard now, but that's as far as I got. I also noticed that they changed the numbering of some labs and stuff, and so the grade book in Blackboard is showing numbers of stuff in the grade book, not on the assignment sheets, but the grade book is showing numbers of things from on the old version of this class out there at Test Out, and not the new version. And so as I'm transferring grades, I am changing the numbers to match accordingly. So do not use the grade book to look at what it is that you should have done, unless it's something I've already put a grade in there for you. Okay? And Chapter 1's all I've put out there so far. Make sure you use the assignment sheets to be aware of. Have most of y'all taken 1135 already? How many of you taken 1135? You took 1135. Did you take it? Operating systems? Operating systems?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Did y'all take operating systems yet? Use Test Out also. Because I've noticed a number of y'all had a number of other assignments done, which is what you do in 1135. The stuff that's not assigned in here, you're going to do them in that class. So those of you that already took that class, you use the same product, so it shows me all the grades you made in that class too. But the only things I'm going to move across are the ones that apply to this class. Does everybody follow on that? And that's why you only have to buy one book between the one code between the two classes. And then they go through, make sure your devices are plugged in, turned on, cables are tight, expansion cards are all seated correctly. Make sure you do have the correct driver, update the drivers sometimes if things are acting up, because you do have to update them occasionally, but not very often. Make sure it's enabled also, because you can disable devices and Device Manager too, assuming you got administrative rights. And if they have down arrows by them that says it's been disabled, if it has a yellow question mark by it, it says it's got a problem with the driver, in which case you need to go in there and click to update the driver. But that may, and you'll want to go out and search the internet, it may or may not find it. If you know where the, go to the manufacturer's website and just download and install the driver yourself, and it will install it back into there for you. And then if a device gets in the way, see if you can start it in safe mode, and that you can go in and disable devices from there. If you just hooked up a device or whatever, or you're suspicioning on one, unplug it from your system and try running the machine without it and see if that solves the problem. Works real well for testing things on that. All right, questions on that? So I think we still got this next week, and I'll get the test out there in the next day or two. I think storage devices is the last thing in the chapter. CD drives, optical drives, RAID. That's all storage devices. Yeah, okay. So let's push storage devices off to next week, and let's just stop today and then do storage devices Monday and Wednesday next week, and that we'll spend time on those, and learn about them, about SATA and PATA. If I remember right, was back here. I'm going backwards so that I can shut it down on the page where I want to be, because remember, Test Out remembers where you were. And then we'll talk about on some utilities. So I'm going to jump around some on that when we talk about that, not so much from what they're telling you as to show you some other things, or some utilities you can run against your storage devices and stuff that we'll look at for on there. Talk about CCleaner and some other utilities and different things, and the Windows utilities on it beyond what they're telling you, because y'all are all got to read all of this stuff anyway online. There's no sense in me telling you the same thing they're telling you, for me to throw you some additional stuff and jump off into some areas on it. Everybody follow on that? And that's actually chapter 5, so that's in 2 weeks. Wait a minute. We're in real good shape. We'll definitely hold off. I just now noticed that. 5's not next week. Yep. We're definitely stopping today. And then we got 5 for the next couple of weeks on that, but we'll do some different things with storage devices on there and see what we do with that. Okay? Because, and like I say, I'll get the test for 3 and 4. I'm going to try to make it this afternoon on it. I'm not for sure. I was intending to work on some stuff last night. I got home and then went, I'm just tired. So, even like the lecture from Tuesday's not out there yet, which I'm actually going to put out there for the Comp 1000 also, because it was the same lecture. But big part is from that one, the emphasis I want you to get out of that. One is about how to work with spyware and viruses. Second thing is work on cleaning people's machines, not wiping their machines as a solution. Keep their machine going and take care of the problem where it's back working like it should be. Okay? In the case of the student that I had given that off of, that had gotten hers worked on, they said they'd save her data files, and that's literally apparently what they did. She assumed, and most other people would assume too, that if you tell them that you're paying them extra money to save your data on the machine, that you're saving the programs too. And obviously from what she told me, they just wiped the machine, reinstalled Windows, because it's even wanting back to default for her on that, and she's going, nothing was there. And I'm going, well, for what they said, I suspect when we look at your machine that your documents are all still there in the document folder. In her case, she didn't really get hurt that bad because Office was about the only thing she had on her machine, and all she has to do is go back out to the school site and download and reinstall it. But if they did it to my machine, I would be in deep trouble, and I would have lost tons of stuff off there. The other thing is, if they did it on my machine, they probably saved 1% of my data, because most of my data is not in documents or pictures. The default pictures folder, my pictures are in a completely different folder out there. Actually, they wouldn't touch that stuff because they're on an external hard drive. They're on an external hard drive, and they're also on another hard drive within the machine. I've got them on a drive a drive F, and then on my external drive. And that's where I really work with them, is from my 5 terabyte external drive. And then I keep all my data over on there. Typically, there's some information that it's one-time usage stuff that I'm really thinking I'm not going to need it long-term. I'm going to get rid of some point. I'll put in documents. Now, my computer here at school, there's a lot of stuff in documents because I let it save on both of my computers by default to there. Typically, except for if it's my online class stuff, I've got that for another folder out there for that. And so they can wipe your stuff out without you even knowing stuff on it. So as y'all are being trained to be computer repair people, actually work on the stuff. You must be good repair people. Okay, I'll see y'all on Tuesday. Monday, sorry.
Okay.
Whatever. And Monday is not a holiday, although it is a federal holiday Monday. So post office and bank will be closed on Monday, but we are open. Because you got the holiday at Christmas time, whether you were here at Christmas time or not.
So we come to school Monday, basically?
Huh?
We're still coming to school, basically?
We're coming to school Monday. I'm going to send a notice out and remind y'all on that too. Somewhere between now and Sunday, saying Monday is a school day.